Hi, I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I'm called the Big Game Hunter because I've been hunting down leaders and staff for organizations for more than 40 years. More and more firms are using applicant tracking systems to store resumes, to select people, to deal with the application process that you're going to be involved with. They're doing this, well, major firms are doing this for a very simple reason: government reporting. They ostensibly think it's also going to be easier for them, but it really isn't. The government makes them report on certain statistics, and employers are using this to streamline all the reporting they have to do to the government, the onboarding if they hire you, and a host of other things. Does it really help you? Not really. So when I look at an applicant tracking system, I wonder who's going to be reading this resume at the back end. Now, most of the time it's not the hiring manager. Most of the time it's a recruiter or an admin within the recruiting office who's there to evaluate and assess. The other party that's going to be looking at your resume is the system itself. And the system is going to reject you based upon any number of criteria. And that's what I want to talk with you about today, is how to avoid having the system just reject you gratuitously, even though you may have the skills that the job requires, but no one's ever going to see it because the applicant tracking system is going to look at your resume and go, excuse the noise there, but I just thought it was appropriate. So the first thing I'm going to tell you not to do, and this is a series of nots here and an occasional do. Number one is, you know how that Microsoft Word has an embedded header feature in your resume, and it allows the name and address and what have you to carry over onto multiple pages? Don't use it. Applicant tracking systems find it difficult to read, and if they find it difficult to read, they're going to reject your resume. No one's ever going to see it. Why is this a factor? Number one is, do you really expect them to open up the embedded header and retype it into their system? Of course not. And if it can't parse that information into the system, it's going to shoot you down. So no one's ever going to see it. So the first thing is, ditch the embedded header. Just type it onto the first page. Real simple. Name, address, phone number, email address, mobile number. This is the basic information they're parsing for. Now, some people opt not to include an address. I want to insist on an address, and particularly a zip code, because sometimes recruiters, that's third-party recruiters like me, and companies are going to try and do a geographic search. So imagine you're working, you're applying to a big company, and you're now in the corporate database, and they decide they need someone with your particular type of background, and it's being searched not just in that one site, but it could be for that one position that you applied for. But in theory, it can be searched by any number of offices that are trying to fill jobs, and unless they have the zip code, they don't know where you are. So make sure your zip code and your address are on the resume. For those of you who are trying to move to another part of the country, I want to remind you about the importance of having an address, especially when you're providing them with a mobile phone number that doesn't correlate with the area that they associate with. I'll give you an example. I'm living in North Carolina now. I still use a Google Voice number with a 646 area code from when I lived in New York. If I were someone who was applying for a job somewhere and used that 646 number, no one would know I'm in the Carolinas, right? They think I'm in New York, and they're starting to think, gee, this guy has to relocate somewhere. So you always want to make sure the address is in the resume, especially if your mobile number doesn't correlate with the location of the job. Secondly, go to certain types of fonts for your resume. In theory, it looks lovely, absolutely lovely to have script in your resume. But the tracking systems don't like script and they'll reject you. In theory, it looks lovely to have beautiful Cambria or classic Times Roman in your resume. But the screening systems don't like it. So stick with things like Verdana, Arial, Calibri, or Tahoma. These are fonts that the systems seem to like, and it will cause you not to get bounced out. Next thing now, I'll simply say, I'm not 25 anymore, as you probably have noticed. See, notice the gray. I'm not 25 anymore, and I used to tell people, don't use small fonts on your resume. Well, the same is true for the applicant tracking systems. They don't like anything 11 points or less less than 11 points on your resume. They will reject you for that. So since the idea is to get read by the systems, you want to ensure that the font is one that's going to be read. Also, try to avoid templates. Templates have embedded tables to them. The systems don't like tables. They don't like templates. They want to just get free-form text. So avoid templates where you can. Avoid borders on your resume. They look lovely, but the systems have trouble with them, and you don't want to get bounced. Also, where you position things in your resume is often important to the tracking systems. So if there are particular skills that you want to call attention to because it's required for the job, you want to position them certainly in the top half of your resume. But if you can get into the top third, that's going to attract the systems that much more, because many of them have algorithms that are designed to recognize where the skill is listed. So, for example, if you include this on the beginning of page 2 of your resume, they're never going to see it. It's going to get blocked out. And that could be your most recent job, and you have this wonderfully elaborate page 1 of all the experiences that you've had and all the things that you've done in summary format, but if it's on page 2, the systems can kick it out. So make sure it's on page 1, and make sure it's in the top half and preferably the top third. Remember, no one looks at paper these days. People are looking at screenshots that are maybe a third of a page. The systems don't want to be in theory, the systems are working off the same evaluation criteria that people do. People aren't going 3 or 4 page downs to find out what you've done. The systems don't do anything differently. So recognize that if you want to get through the technology to the human being on the other side, your one shot is to follow these instructions and to, in particular, make sure that skills are listed early in your resume. This is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you found today's tips helpful. If you did, come over to my website, jeffaltman.com. There's a page where I have more videos with job search advice. I'll also encourage you to sign up for a complimentary subscription to my e-zine, which is called No BS Job Search Advice. I publish it on Tuesdays with advice for job hunters that's good anywhere in the world. You can also read many of the previous articles I've written for the e-zine and listen to podcasts of my radio show, which is called No BS Job Search Advice Radio, which I do Monday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on Blog Talk Radio. The podcasts show up on my website later that same day. While you're at my site, there are more than 50 places that you can post your resume to. Easy to work with career builder links that are on the homepage in the right-hand column. You can also access Job Search Universe on the bottom of the homepage. Job Search Universe searches thousands of sites concurrently for job leads and makes things easier for people, so you don't have to go find these boards, let alone apply for them. You can also use Indeed on that links page. There's information about my books and guides to job hunting, as well as other people's books that are available on Amazon. If you like, send a connection request to me on LinkedIn. I'll point out, by the way, I don't accept requests from third-party recruiters. I accept them from individuals, I accept them from HR professionals, but not third-party recruiters. To find me, you can either look for Jeff Altman in New York with the words The Big Game Hunter underneath my name, or go to this link, linkedin.com/IN/The Big Game Hunter. So this is Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you found today's video helpful. Hope you have a great day. Take care.